Today on Router's Garage, episode 1 of hopping up this 1928 Model A 4-banger engine. Alright guys, so 9 months ago is when I tore this engine down and made a video called Disassembly and Inspection of a 94-year-old Model A engine. And we found some interesting things out when I tore this block apart. Some big damage in cylinder 4. But that's all in that video from 9 months ago when I tore this thing down and looked it over. This was a running engine, for those of you that don't know. This came out of the Yard Art Model A, this 28 Model A coupe. And I got it running 2 years ago or something like that and drove it around the yard. So the engine did actually run, but the plan here is to hop this thing up, to give it quite a horsepower increase over the 40 horsepower factory rate that these things had on them. So let me show you guys a few parts I have. I need to get this thing cleaned up. It's time to take it out to the machine shop and see if the damage in cylinder 4 is going to clean up after boring it, get the thing all washed up, and I have some other parts that I will show you guys here in a second that also need to get installed at the machine shop. And then I can move on and bring the thing back down here and maybe get into a little porting in the intake and exhaust runners here. So let's take a look at cylinder number 4 and I'll show you guys that damage one more time if you didn't catch the first video. Alright, so like I said, in the teardown video, the disassembly and inspection, I found out that there was a large mark here down in the cylinder, and I did mic this out last time in the Will It Run, in the disassembly and inspection video, and I mic'd that out, and at a 4-inch bore, which is what I want to go with this, we're gonna go up to a 4-inch bore on this, that should clean up. So that's gonna be the big question here. I'm gonna get this thing to the machine shop. He is gonna start by punching cylinder 4 to 4-inch, and if it cleans up, we're golden. After that, he's gonna punch the other 3 cylinders, and I have some other goodies for the valve train here that I'll show you in a second. So one of the biggest changes I'm gonna be making to this engine is pressurizing the crankshaft, pressurizing the mains and the rod journals in this thing, and I'm going to achieve that by putting a forged scat crankshaft in this thing drilled for oiling to actually pressurize the crankshaft. Originally, this engine right now has no pressurized oil going to the crankshaft at all. It is all gravity. Basically what happens is there is an oil pump. The oil pump pumps it up into the valve chest here, or the rocker box, and basically gravity bleeds down a series of holes running down to the cam bearings and to the main bearings on the crankshaft of this engine. The rods were slinger. They had a little thing sticking off the end of the rod and would scoop or sling oil up, kind of like a lawnmower does basically. So there is no pressurized oiling going to the crankshafts in these in stock configuration. Now the Model B blocks, which are the later upgraded version of the 4-banger that would have been in 32 and 3, in pickup trucks, stuff like that, deuce coupes that were ordered with a 4-banger, those Model B blocks were actually upgraded to pressurized main oiling. They actually pressurized the mains on the crank, but the rods were still dipper in those as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this because I'm not that familiar with these. This is number 1 for me. So that is going to be one of the big reasons I'm going to be changing the crankshaft in this thing. I am going to get a drilled crankshaft forged to hold the horsepower, and because then I can pressurize the crankshaft by adding some pipes down in the crankcase that will basically be coming out over here by the oil pump and running up to feed each main journal. So I'll have 3 copper lines, probably 2 off. You have to tee them off one side, come off the other. And then I will pressurize oil from the pump to the 3 mains, and then the crankshaft, the new crankshaft that I will be ordering, is drilled. So the oil will feed through the mains, come through, and pressurize oil the rods. That is going to be one of the biggest and most expensive changes to this block that I will be doing here in the future. Now as for the original oiling system, you can see very clearly right here. There's a little tube coming down. Well, that tube comes from the valve chest up on the side and basically just dribbles oil down right here through this hole and into that main bearing. The same thing in the center over here, dribbles down into there, not pressurized, just gravity feeding it down. And the same thing back here on the rear main. That's what we're gonna get rid of. That's what I'm gonna get rid of out of this thing and pressurize those three, which will in turn pressurize the whole crank. Same thing down here on the cam bearings. You can see there's a hole there. and over here on the side by the oil pump, and up here in the front too, same concept over there. But that is all going to be in the future. And I can't turn it that way because there's a long bolt in there. That will all be in the future. Today, I'm gonna start off by basically cleaning this block up with the wire wheel, so he doesn't have to deal with all this 100-year-old or 94-year-old dust and grime that's plastered all over the side of the block at the machine shop. I'm gonna get all that cleaned off, and then he can easily wash it. And hopefully I can be there when he runs that boring bar down this rear cylinder so we can all see together what actually happens when that runs through the block. The other reason I want to take this to the machine shop right now is because I ordered some fancy new parts. So here are some of the components originally out of this engine. Here's one of the valves that I took out in the disassembly and inspection video. You're gonna notice right off the bat that this valve is the same size as all the other ones. All the valves in the Model A were the same size all the way down. So that's one thing you're gonna notice right off the bat. The other thing too is, look at the way the end of the valve is. That's where the retainer goes on. That's a little bit different than your standard modern valve retainers. Down here on the bottom, or on the floor, I should say, this is actually the retainer like this. Kind of a horseshoe or a C-clip that would just slide over the valve stem, come down while your spring is compressed, and that's what actually held the spring in place on the original setup. Kind of like a lawnmower, once again. That's basically the same way lawnmowers or Briggs & Stratton engines were put together. The other thing is valve guides. Valve guides originally were two-piece, and in the disassembly and inspection video, I had to make a little tool to pound these out. It was very crude. I think I threw it out already because I kind of broke it. These are actually slipped around the valve stem and pounded in with the valve, kind of all at the same time. And that's the way they had that set up on the valve guides. Now, modern valve guides are one piece, which is what I actually ordered for this thing. Let's take a look at the new stuff. Valves, new style press-in guides, which obviously are one piece as opposed to the two-piece that I just showed you. And intake valves are much bigger. If I compare the intake to the exhaust, the one here on our right is the same size as the original. And you can see the one on the left is bigger. This is a bigger intake valve. So basically, the seat will get cut larger in the deck up here and allow for a bigger intake side valve. The one-piece press-ins for the guides, those will be obviously pressed in at the machine shop, taken care of over there. I won't ever really have to remove them again because the new valves, and obviously you wouldn't be able to put them through a one-piece guide. That's why they did two-piece factory. The new valves are straight cut on the end. They have a notch cut in them, or a groove, just like a factory, I don't know, small block Chevy or anything, basically modern style. And they went to a modern style retainer on the bottom of it. Two-piece retainer on the bottom, like those in this bag right here. So that is gonna be the upgrade on the valve train for this thing, and that is gonna be the plan right now. I'm gonna get this thing wire wheeled and cleaned up here really quick. It's gonna go to the machine shop. I already told you we're gonna check to make sure that bore cleans up and punch all 4 holes in the thing. And I'm gonna have him put these one-piece guides into place in the block, because once those are in there, I can go in and do a little cleanup. I'd like to say porting, but I'm gonna call it cleanup inside the intake and exhaust runners down this engine. Now, the reason I say cleanup is there's not a lot of material in these, and I watched a few people do a little bit of porting on them. But they say that the average wall thickness in these runners coming up in the side of the block is only 5/32. So it's a little bit over an 1/8 inch thick. So that does not leave a lot of room for porting. And we can look down here through the water jacket and kind of see, that's the actual runner right there coming in the water jacket there. And it is not that thick. They are very thin walled. So I'm gonna have him press the valve guides in, make sure the bore is good. We'll get it back down to the shop. I've got some ideas on how I want to clean those runners up. Maybe try to do a little bit of bowl work up top. And I'm thinking, well, actually I know with the one-piece guide, there's actually gonna be a little more room up here in the bowl area, basically right under the valve, hopefully, as compared to the original valve guides. It might not be a lot, but hopefully it's a little bit more area that'll gain us a little more flow with the one-piece guides. I think, if I'm wrong, tell me so. But we're gonna see what we have to work with after it gets bored and the valve guides get pushed into place. That will give me time to take care of some of that stuff, get the crankshaft ordered, and that will be further down the line. So, all right, so I just fired up the big buzzing mercury vapor light up there that's already starting to hum. I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing cleaned up. Like I said, I'm gonna wire wheel all this garbage off the block for the machine shop, get one on my air tool and get down in all the bowls, take as much as the crud and crap off this thing as I possibly can, because your machinist will appreciate that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that done. We'll load this thing up, and that's gonna be it until it gets bored and hopefully everything works out. And then we'll move on to something probably along the lines of porting and cleaning up those runners. Let's do it. Boy, that mercury vapor light isn't noisy at all, is it? I'm hoping with all the guts out of it, I can pick it up now. It doesn't seem to weigh anything. Find out. Oh, that's light. As long as I don't drop it, we'll be okay. There. And some valves and guides. Those up there so they don't end up on the floor. All right, guys, well, that pretty much is gonna wrap it up for today. I am gonna go get this thing delivered, get it bored, get the guides put in, and then we'll work on it from there. And I'm gonna try to be over there, like I said, when they sink that boring bar into cylinder 4, just to see how that's all going to work out. So thanks for watching, guys, appreciate it. I am gonna go deliver this thing, let him get started washing on it and stuff like that, and try to organize a time to view it getting bored. So appreciate it, guys, thanks for watching. Till next time.